So, as you know, Ed has been a thought leader in the personal development field for now over 25 years. And he studied at the London School of Economics. That's where I met him back in 2005 when I was also studying there, but he had graduated. I walked into one of his classes on the Bhagavad Gita, and that really changed my life. He studied philosophy and economics while he was there. And while he was there, he had an interest in meditation and personal development. That's really how his interest, grew. But really, he's provided the groundwork for his unique system of personal development, that the realized knowledge system. And that's really what he's been engaged speaking about for years and decades. He's spoken at Cambridge, the College of London, for business companies across the world, as some of you know, and he's really spoken in all different parts of the world, which include Canada, US, Europe, Asia, and Africa. His presentations really have a unique flavor because he is a product of many rich and diverse cultural and intellectual influences, as we've seen before. He studied under various mentors, and he's gained access to rare systems of knowledge that from the Eastern Vedic tradition, with special emphasis on leadership, relationships, and personal development. And as a result of his unique training, he's developed an exceptional ability to marry insights between Eastern wisdom and cutting edge modern thinking to assist in achieving greater fulfillment for all those that come into touch with him. I would say his trademark includes penetrating insight, clarity, and vision, and very easy to understand and relatable delivery. So he mentors a number of professionals in London and globally, including myself. So I'm very honored to call him a mentor for the last 17 years. And you may know that he has his own podcast called the Ed Inova Podcast, where he shares original and effective frameworks for higher achievements. So, and then just on a side note, we would just wanted to add that, we're very fortunate to have Ed, and his time is very valuable. So we wanted to show appreciation in this book club by, if everyone, feels comfortable, we are wanting everyone to provide a donation for this book club. And Ed, so touchingly, as a leader does, he's using this to contribute to a specific project that him and I are working on for his mentor and teacher. We're in the process of trying to take all of BT Swami's books and convert them into audiobooks, get them ready to be on Audible so they can reach a wider audience. And so any of the proceeds that are given to Ed in this project will go for us to be able to work on that. So I just wanted to share that up front, and we're really grateful for everyone's presence today. So please, Ed, take it from there.
Thank you very much. And I feel very humbled by Ricky's very kind introduction. I have to be honest, I feel very honored to be with all of you. I'm actually in the US right now. I came here I was actually a speaker, one of the key speakers of the retreat in a retreat center that I'm about to leave today. I'm going to New York later today for a couple of days, and I'll do some presentations at a few centers in New York. So we'll be going to the Bhakti Center and one other place as well. And then I'll come back to London. My flight leaves on Sunday evening. I wanted to say how honored I am to be with all of you. I also meant to say hi to Paul. It's great to see you again, Paul. Thank you for being on this call. I wanted to say how honored I am to be with all of you for a number of reasons. And I mean this very, very sincerely. We are at a time in human civilization where those individuals who confuse, who can bring together the current, let's say, best practices and techniques of the world, and who can connect that with deep underlying principles and laws, they will be not only the leaders of the now, but they'll be the leaders of the future. Every time we come together like this to explore, especially the cutting edge between ancient wisdom and modern techniques, right? We're doing something very, very special in society. I want to honor all of you just for the fact that you're here the fact that you are leaders in your own right. And we'll talk about leadership in different dimensions as we go through. There's a tremendous amount that we have to share with you. I feel very grateful to Rikin for arranging this, so, I mean, he called me his mentor, but to be honest with you, I feel like we're family. We probably knew each other as, we may go way back, let's put it that way. So I feel very honored to be here and very grateful to him and to all of you, because also, and this is what I want to really embed it as a foundational point, every time we come together to discuss like this, something very, very special takes place. Every time we come together to discuss like this, we actually reaffirm our own journey in life, because what I've seen in this Titans group, to be very, very honest, are people of a certain caliber of consciousness that is not standard, right? So I've known Ambika for many years, her very wonderful husband, Ronak, the wonderful work that they do, all of you that we've spoken to on previous sessions, the mentality that you have, the character that you have, but even more than that, in one sense, it's the aspiration that you have. The aspiration to be better people, to have better character, to make the world a better place. So honestly speaking, I'm at a time in my own life where I feel increasingly compelled, actually. I was going to say inspired, but it's more than that. I feel increasingly compelled to spend my time, energy, and sharing with those who I feel are almost like, who have a heart which is like a fertile soil, who are most receptive to what we have to share, and who can use it to make a real difference to the world. And I can honestly say, I don't feel that leaning is accidental. So we were talking at the place where I'm staying, where I've been staying for these past few days, this retreat center, it's an eco farm, very beautiful place, wonderful resources, environment. Maybe one day we'll do something here together. And this project was very much under the leadership of my own teacher, and we'll talk about him as we go through, because we'll be utilizing the material from his books. And so I really feel that there's a synergy here. There's a reason why we come together. There's a reason why we're coming together at this time. There's a reason why we're discussing these topics. I want you from the outset to consider me your servant. And I want you to consider that everything that we're sharing, I'm here to make sure that you have the best possible experience in quality. And I'm here to also assist you in utilizing this ancient or timeless wisdom so you can have incredible outcomes. And I'm using my words very carefully. We're not looking at just outcomes, and we're not looking at just techniques. We're not looking at just a few people's ideas, but I'm excited to help you to have incredible outcomes on a personal and professional basis. And I'm very much dedicated to that. And I hope that aspiration will be reflected through the material that we share and the conversations that we have. I'll share with you also, I was having a conversation with Rikin a little earlier today, and he was mentioning, and I was very heartened by this, he was mentioning how I know that in previous sessions, or maybe some sessions where he's leading, he'll say certain prayers at the beginning. And, in the spirit of fusing timeless wisdom with cutting edge techniques, because we're trying to give a knowledge of a higher source, I would also like to infuse some of these ideas in the way that we present. I've got some slides to share with you. Today, we will just be giving something about an overview, but we hope it will plant some seeds of what is to come. So I will also say a few prayers very briefly. And these are actually within the tradition of what we call Sanatana Dharma, or eternal understanding, eternal wisdom. These prayers are also to help us to have a deeper focus, and literally a deeper gratitude and empowerment, so that when we are learning ancient knowledge, and this is our theme, learning ancient knowledge in terms of how we can utilize it in our day-to-day life, which will allow us to feel its power. Okay, and again, as Rikin has said, I've been working in this field of leadership development, personal development for decades. my honest experience is that what we have and what we will be sharing with each other is the cutting edge of the cutting edge. Okay? So I will say a few quick prayers. These prayers are called Mangalacharyan. Mangalacharyan means an auspicious invocation. What they are designed to do, these prayers, are to link us all, even just by listening. So even if you don't know the meaning of the words in the Sanskrit, do not worry. No one has to learn another language on this particular call. But the purpose is to link us up to a very powerful stream of good fortune. For some of you who were in a previous presentation that we did, we gave a formula. And this formula is a formula that I live by, and it's a true formula from the Mahabharata. Mahabharata is an ancient history. The formula has 3 different elements, which we touched on in a previous seminar. And I believe that there's a private YouTube channel that Rikin has already given you all access to, and those recordings are there. So this is a formula given in the Mahabharata saying that success requires focus, endeavor, and mercy or good fortune. Okay, so some people have 1 of the 3, a few people have 2 of the 3. It's very rare to come into a gathering where people have consistently apply or have the potential to really complete that circuit. And this is what has been exciting me literally for decades with this knowledge and this research that I've been doing, is that this ancient teaching, these Vedic literatures, they give complete models. Since I was 13 years old, I was involved in meditation. I looked into self-help. I looked into hypnosis. I read a book on self-hypnosis, which I started using those techniques, and they did work. I used them in a way that had certain, let's say, comical consequences, which we'll talk about maybe at another occasion. You'll find out what I got up to when I was in college. But the point is that all of these techniques have something. But when you have a complete system, it makes everything that you do more powerful. Because when you have a complete system of understanding, you can literally see how to maximize the results by doing an analysis to see, am I utilizing all the elements or all the laws in a given area? For example, there are laws of relationship. So some people know 1 or 2 ideas about relationship. They may do 1 or 2 things. So therefore, they keep their relationships on a certain level of success. But if they knew the entire system, then they can optimize. You see, so this is the idea. I'll be honest with you, because I'm constantly thinking about this. One of the things that I'm working on, because I was thinking about this in terms of my own leadership. You know, Rikin and I are involved in some projects, and one of the things that I wanted to do, and if we get time, I'll show it to you. These principles here, is I wanted to start making a conscious endeavor that whenever I'm leading a project, I run through the principles of empowered leadership, and I look to see, am I consistently expressing each of these principles? There's 2 dynamics to this. One is to see, am I expressing each of these principles, or at least these principles which are relevant in a given situation? That's one dimension. So that you could say is quantity, right? And then the second dimension I was looking at, and this is something I'm still working through, and this is where there's a huge area of opportunity for each and every one of us. The second dynamic is, am I expressing each of these principles in quality? So I've been looking at underlying models within the ancient Vedic literatures to see how we can give the world something which is, as I said, the cutting edge of the cutting edge. Okay, we'll be really getting into that as we go through these next few sessions. So we are blessed literally to have access to a certain type of knowledge which is complete. And you'll see what I mean as we go through the presentations. What I found by comparison is that many fields of self-help, you have a few ideas that come through empiricism or advice, and that's not bad. Okay, so someone has had some failed relationships, and they've learned through trial and error. Okay, I shouldn't do this next time. I should make sure I do this. I did this and it was right, but I didn't do it consistently, or I didn't do it enough. Well, I've discovered through many decades of trying to access both this ancient understanding and trying to see how it maps out to modern research, how it maps out to what people who are successful are doing, all I've understood is that there's an underlying universal system. And again, I repeat, that system is you want a complete understanding in a given area. That's part one. Part two, you want to consistently express those principles or laws. That's part two, right? So the first one is knowledge. I know the full science of something. The second one is application. So I'm doing all the right things that keep that particular area of life alive. And then the last principle is quality. So I'm expressing the principle in the right way. For example, let's say that we know that a quality of a good leader is that he or she is protective of the people that they're leading. Okay, so we know that some really high-performing leaders, they will back up their team. So if the team member is going to try to innovate or try something new, that leader will let them know, I have your back. I'm on your side. I'm here to support you. And then that lends itself to a greater confidence and a greater competence to that particular person. If I'm gonna take a risk, I'm much more ready to take a risk if I know that you're there to support me with knowledge, with understanding, with encouragement. And it allows me to do things and try things that I would not otherwise try, you know? So there's the principle of protection, but then there's how that principle is expressed. So what you'll find if you carefully study most self-help and even research systems is that some will give just the principles, but they don't explain how to express it properly. Some will give just techniques. They'll give you a few, so, people will try to have good relationships. And, and there's a whole literature for men about how to have a good relationship with your partner, right? And so there'll be books and they'll say things like, make sure you tell your wife that the way, that she looks really nice today, right? So then, man, yeah, I've got the technique, right? So the next time they're about to go out, he'll tell his wife, honey, you look great tonight. And then she turns around to him and says, well, what do you like about the way I dress, about the way I'm dressed? And he doesn't have an answer because his book didn't tell him what to say at that point. You see? So it's just a technique. There's no understanding of what's behind it. He doesn't understand that actually what the principle is, you want to show her that you love, respect, and appreciate her. The principle is you want to show her that she's valued. That's the point. Now, the detail, the technique is how you do that, right? It could be praising what she's wearing. It could be just paying her full attention when she's speaking to you. It could be thinking about the fact that it's her birthday coming up and, and this is a gift that she would really appreciate. That's the technique. That's where the technique comes in. But the principle, what you're trying to generate is I want her to know that she's valued. And that's the beauty of the Vedic system. It gives you the underlying core principle, and then it helps you to understand the language so that you actually know that there are many different ways in which you can express that principle. Do you see the difference? So it's not like a one-dimensional system. It is actually three-dimensional. And this is the beauty of it. What I've done, in all honesty, because I feel like we're family, we want to speak openly. What I've been doing over many years is test driving this. I've been observing and exploring various situations with different groups, whether it's leadership, relationships. I was speaking to one young man who was at this retreat. I mean, the guy's an entrepreneur. He's 18 years old. He's already sold his first company. He was mentioning on the retreat, he sold his first company for $440,000. And so he's asked me, we've had some conversations because he's building together a team and he's looking at new businesses he wants to get involved in. So we've been giving him a bit of advice and he wants me to meet his actual team. So because we've learned this deep analysis of everything, we know that there are certain principles of entrepreneurship. So what I'm doing when I'm speaking to him, I listen out for what he's doing. I make a comparison between what he's doing and the principles of business. And by doing so, I can see where the gaps are. So I know that, so let's say we know, for example, there are 7 principles of great business. When I hear him, I can see, oh, he's doing 4 of them, but there's another 3 that he's not doing. So then I can add value in that way. I can say, yes, your business is going well because you're doing these 4, but there's another 3 areas that you're neglecting. If you did those, your business will be much more successful. That's one dimension. Then the other thing we can do is I can say, yes, and then we know that there are these 7 principles of business. Now, the next thing is we look at how you're doing them, right? So for example, one principle of business is that you must generate value, right? If you want your business to be successful, people must get more value than they're giving. In other words, the value that they're getting from you they must feel it's actually worth the time and the energy and the money that they're pulling into your business, whether it's a product, a service, etc. Right? One principle of business. Another principle of business is that you must meet a need, isn't it? We all know this intuitively. When people are looking, and his team and I will do something on this. When people are looking at where to enter the market, the essential principle is they look to see where is there a need, right? There's a gap in the market. If we offer this product, this service at this price point, we will be able to capture an audience. And so when I'm looking at that, again, the same understanding from the Vedic literatures. I understand the principles, and so we see what principles are not being met. Then what we do is we look at how the principles are being expressed. Okay, he's trying to fulfill a need. How well is he doing this? He's doing it, but he's doing it in a mediocre way. Okay, but if he fulfilled an even deeper need, he'd have even stronger audience loyalty, stronger market segmentation. Okay, another principle of business is not just enough to have a product or service that fulfills a need. Everyone has to know about that product or service, or at least there has to be an alignment between promotion and audience. So you have a great product, but your audience don't know about it, you're in trouble, right? Or you have a great product, you're advertising to the people who can't afford that great product, and for whom that product isn't a pain point, you're in trouble. Yeah. So this is what the Vedas are giving. And all of that is actually a precursor to the to the prayers that I'll do. So I'll just say this Mangalacharan prayers, I'll say it briefly, then we're going to get into our discussions today. And so it just means an auspicious invocation to align us with this higher understanding. Om Gyana Timirandasya, Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Ummilitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nitinamane. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shritatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Itinamane. Okay, so I'm excited to begin the journey with all of you here and now. So I'm going to share my slides.
And do you mind just turning your camera slightly down so we just get more of you? It's just, there we go, perfect.
So what we're going to be discussing and exploring, and I can honestly say this, it's a really powerful read, a powerful book, is a book by Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Sometimes we call him BT Swami. It's a shorthand. And the book is called Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness, Part 2. So I wanted to give a little bit of a backdrop to the author. So he's my mentor. He passed away he passed away in this particular location in 2005. But BT Swami was actually a globally renowned speaker. He went to Princeton University. He studied international law, but also psychology, various aspects of international politics, etc. And it positioned him actually very, very well, because he had very much a very natural leadership character. He was always leading in various aspects of his personal life, professional career. He was a leader in terms of the system, in various different initiatives. He was also someone who was very much interested in the human condition. So from an early age, he was involved in various types of meditative practices, yoga practices, especially like Raja Yoga. And then eventually he really learned about and dedicated his life to various principles of Bhakti Yoga. And his books were really a fusion of understanding current world challenges, whether it's in the field of leadership, in the field of relationships, in the field of social cohesion. There were books which were on the mind, to mental health from a spiritual perspective, and also the understanding of how we can have greater social unity, along with books which were much more of a direct spiritual nature. So he was very much into how we could take spiritual or ancient wisdom and apply this in the modern context. In fact, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago, Jada Pinkett Smith, so the wife of Will Smith, she started reading some of his books, and she actually put something out on Instagram where she was talking about the value of those books. There was a particular book which was on relationships called Spiritual Warrior 2. And I actually saw also Will Smith in his autobiography, he actually mentioned Bhakti Tirtha Swami by name in one passage in his autobiography. He mentioned how he and his wife, by reading that book, Spiritual Warrior 2, it had helped them with their own marriage and their own relationships. So even when he was physically with us, he was reaching out to various communities, leaders. He was an advisor to people like Nelson Mandela. So he would actually be an advisor to that leader when Nelson Mandela was president of South Africa, advising him on strategies to really bring about more social cohesion within that society. He did the same for other leaders around the world, politicians, high-ranking government officials. I know he spent time giving advice and guidance to various senior people in the United Nations as well. I'm just sharing this because we want to understand the context and the credibility of a speaker. And this is an aside. There's research on this. Whenever you meet someone, or whenever someone meets you, consciously or unconsciously, they form an impression of you on the basis of 2 key areas of consideration. The first one is, are you credible? Which is why it's, in many self-development seminars, there'll always be some introduction or the bio of the speaker. So the first question they are thinking about you, consciously or unconsciously, is, are you credible? And the second question is, do I like you? See? So so you'll see this, especially politicians are trained in this way. They try to convey credibility and character. Yeah. If they're seen to have these 2 characteristics, then people are much more likely to be receptive to what you have to say on 2 levels. They're receptive on the level of the head and on the level of the heart. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he was very strong in both of these areas. When people would meet him, you could see immediately this person is incredibly competent and has a very strong character and principle. And at the same time, they could see that this person genuinely has my best interests at heart. So you could see he was compassionate, caring, and therefore, both at the level of the head and at the level of the heart, people would be much more open and receptive. Anyway, we like to drop these things in because there's every aspect of our journey is an education. And I leave you to think about that, and maybe we'll dive into that in a future session. How do I come across? You're all business leaders, you're entrepreneurs in your own right. What I love to do with sincere people like yourself is to bring conscious awareness to your leadership. And this is what we're going to be doing with these book studies. Because if you have conscious awareness, and this is what I've been doing for decades, then you can make sure that you maximize that. I'm going to speak to a particular audience. What do I do to express that I've got good character and I care about them? You can make that conscious decision in how you introduce yourself, or in how you're introduced, or the anecdotes that you share at the beginning. I was one person who I give some guidance to was on this retreat, and I was expressing that point. As we go back quite some years, and I was expressing the point that they want to be conscious in their communication, and I was expressing to them that whatever you do at the beginning of an enterprise, so the beginning of your education, the beginning of your relationship, the beginning of your project, whatever you do at that stage is actually more valuable than other stages. And I was explaining to them, even some of the people at this retreat, that the pattern, and this is a pattern from the Bhagavad Gita, and Rikin will be familiar with this, 3 patterns according to what they call 3 gunas or modes. One pattern, which is called ignorance. Things start bad and continue bad. They get worse. One pattern, which is called passion. Things start well and then crash. One pattern, which is called goodness, the pattern of goodness, that it's poison or hard work in the beginning because you're making more of an investment at the beginning, but the strategic investment at the beginning is almost a guarantee that the midterm and long term will be incredible. I was telling the people at this retreat, so I've known these people for quite some time and I've attended quite a few of their retreats. I was telling them that I could see they're going to be successful. And I was using this model from the Bhagavad Gita because they put in strategic effort, thought, time, intentionality, and relationships. They put that in consistently in a thoughtful way. And that is a sign that if they continue on that trajectory, the midterm effects will be incredible and the long-term effects will be out of this world. You know, so you can understand things by patterns, and B.T. Swami will go into that science and touch upon that in this Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness too, as we go through the seminars. It's literally a system that allows you to predict how things will play out, or how things are likely to play out. I want to be very precise in my communication with all of you, because then you can really take full advantage. So when I say likely, it means that something has a trajectory, but then every single individual also carries their own karma, you see? So therefore you can see the likely outcomes, but there's also a factor that comes in that may be a bit of a blind side. Now karma doesn't have to be bad either. Someone may have some karma whereby they're not even behaving so well, but some things move forward. But the other thing can also be true. Some people could be doing very, very well or doing the right behaviors, but then they may have some karmic baggage that comes in that they have to deal with. Having said that, if we act properly and wisely, then even if we have some karmic baggage, we still put ourselves in the best and most powerful position to deal with whatever challenges are coming our way. Anyway, so we'll be utilizing the wisdom that is encapsulated in these particular books. Myself and some team, we recently, in the last few years, we made all of these books, or majority of these books. There's 3 more titles, but the vast majority of the 14 books written by B.T. Swami, they're available, and you can buy them on Amazon at this point in time. And we're working through Rikin, you know, and with his great managerial execution skills, you know, it's been, and the team that we've assembled together have been kindly assisting to really make sure that we're getting those audio books out. And if you're interested, then obviously we can keep you informed as and when they become available. So that's something about the background of the author, whose material we will be utilizing as we go through this, you know, 10-part or so seminar. As we said, today's an overview. I get excited because there's so much I want to share with you, but it's not about me. I'm going to pause and just ask, are there any questions on anything we've said so far before we continue on? Rikin, I saw you on mute. Was there something you wanted to ask?
I just wanted to make a point. I think for just the recording purpose, if you're speaking for a length of time, maybe just unshare the screen, so then we just have you and you're not a small box.
Okay, no problem at all. Thank you. Very much appreciate that feedback. Okay, I can see Stacy. You've raised the hand, and then I can see Ambika. So Stacy, first of all, great to see you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very exciting. It's exciting to be through technology, to be standing at a coffee shop at the beach, talking to people all around the world. So, okay, so I had a question about when I think you talked about 7 principles around entrepreneurship, but I only heard 4.
Yes. So I was just giving that as an arbitrary example. I wasn't saying that there are 7. There are actually more, but I'm happy to go through that in much more detail. But I wanted to give you more an example to give you a flavor of things. What I was trying to really convey, and I'm glad you've asked me about this because it allows me to clarify. What I really wanted to convey was that the value of what we're trying to share in this series of presentations is that, as opposed to what you'll find in much of self-help, which is a few ideas. What I'm trying to convey is when you have a complete system, a complete understanding in a given area, it gives you great power. Because then you can know I'm doing everything that I'm meant to be doing. So I know I'm optimizing from the point of view of following all those principles. And then you can make sure that now I'm going to focus on the quality of how I express those particular laws. Whereas what tends to happen is in the modern system, many times what people are learning are just a few fragmental ideas. So since you've asked, I'm going to share with you something else on this. This is how it works. I was studying this. For example, you will have some people, they do certain things by default, which are good. Okay. So let's say that you're a business person and by default, you haven't studied anything about business, but by default, you're naturally tuned in to understanding your audience. So because that's a strength, you go on a course and then you learn one or two other things which complement the thing that you do already. Now, what happens then is that makes you more successful, but you may go, not you, but let's say someone who is in that situation, they may then go to all their friends and rave, you know what it is? What you need to do is you need to do market research. That's what will allow you to be successful. Now, for someone else, they think, wow, let me go on a course and do market research. But that only works if they're doing the other things that you're doing as well. You see? But so oftentimes people sell courses and they say, you go on this course, it will change your life. But the power of any course is the degree to which you have a complete circuit. It's the degree to which you have you complete all the laws. You're doing all the things which make your business successful. So let's say going back to your example, let's say someone by accident are doing 6 of the 7 things. I'm not saying there are 7 things, but 6 of the 7 things that make business a success. They happen to go on a course which introduces them to one more principle that they didn't know. Now they've got all 7 out of 7 and their business takes off. It's easy to come to the wrong conclusion and think it was that course that suddenly transformed my business and now my business is taking off. No, it's the fact that it completed the circuit. So someone else is going to go on that same course. They're going to do that same technique, but they're not doing the other 6 things. So they go on the course and their business doesn't take off and they're thinking, but what's wrong? I went on the same course you went on. Yeah, but you were doing the other things already. So that course was completing the circuit. They don't do the other things. So that course is now you've got 1 out of 7. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say. But I'm happy to go. I'll have to check my notes for all the principles of business, but we could definitely do that on a future occasion. But you get the flavor. What I was trying to say is when you have a complete understanding in any area, it makes you more powerful, but it also does another thing, since you've asked. It makes you more confident. You see, where does the lack of confidence come from? A lack of confidence is that you don't know what you don't know. So I see this all the time. Sometimes I mentor people about relationships and they're like, I'm trying, I'm doing this, I'm saying that, why is it not working? And then we sit down and we explore and we realize, yeah, you're doing these things correct, but you're neglecting these particular things. And it's not their fault. No one's ever told them. So there's not just one thing that you need to do in relationship, you see? But if you knew all the principles, then you know I'm doing everything that I need to do to make this a success. Now you're confident. And then if it's not working, then it allows you to have a second powerful ability. I'll explain. And this is something I've seen in my own life. If I know I'm doing all the right things and something is not working, then I can clearly diagnose that it's not that I'm not doing the right things. It means I may not be expressing them in the right way. You see, for example, I teach many leaders and we're constantly talking about how to motivate the team, and we will often go into the discussion around recognition. Okay, this is a classic mistake that leaders make. So we'll talk about recognition. Yes, I recognize my team. The team did well. I gave them a round of applause, or the team did well in our team meeting. I stood up and said that, John, you've done a great job. Andy, you've done a great job. Amy, you've done a great job. Susan, you've done a great job. And then we start talking. And I said to the leader, I said, okay, I get it. Now let's just take a moment. Why did you recognize them in that way? Yeah, everyone loves being told, everyone loves being being called out in a team meeting and you know, being recognized. And I challenged the leader. I said, tell me, like, has that ever happened to you? Yes, you know, my previous manager, he or she praised me in the team meeting and I loved it. And then I challenged the leader. I said, I think the mistake that you're making is you're projecting the way that you are onto other people. So the principle is correct. People want to be recognized, but the way that you've done it without meaning to, you've projected what works for you onto them. And I went back to the leader and said, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to have a conversation with your team and ask them, what does recognition look like for you? You see, that leader was an extrovert. You see, some of his team were introverts. He didn't realize, it's not that he was badly intentioned. So again, it's this idea that, okay, now I've got the principle. The next question is, am I expressing it properly? So I know that recognition is important, but now what does recognition look like to this person? Because often what leaders do, if they don't know this deep knowledge, is even if they've got the principle correct, they're expressing it in the wrong way. And then they get frustrated. I gave them a round of applause in the team meeting. I told everyone how wonderful they are, and they're still leaving and going to work for someone else. These people are ungrateful. They're not ungrateful. They're not ungrateful. It's just that we're impersonal sometimes. We think that we see the world from our own perspective. So we think that what works for us works for everyone. And it requires another fresh pair of eyes who has perspective to say, look, I know your intention is good, but you're not expressing that principle in the right way or to the right degree according to this particular context. So this is where the knowledge becomes really powerful. Now I know what to do, and then I'm also able to tune in. Am I expressing it in the right way? So you see how it's a more refined system. Anyway, does that answer your question, Stacey?
And much, much more. Yes, thank you.
No, thank you. See, the truth is, you'll see this in the Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness 2 book that we'll be using. I was looking through the first part of it today, and there's a heading about the qualification of the speaker and the hearer. Again, the reason why I'm so interested in being with all of you is because I can see that you guys are open to higher understanding. And whether you know it or not, because you're open and sincere to higher understanding, I actually become empowered to share more with you. Because you sincerely want to learn, I become empowered and inspired to share more and more and more. And this is just meant to be an overview, but you can see how many things we've gone into, right? But there's so much more to share. Even some of the things that we touch upon now, as we go through, we're going to really explore it with examples and exercises, and we'll get you to look at how you can apply this specifically, not just generally. We'll look at how to apply it generally, but then we're going to get you to do certain work where you're going to look at your team. You're going to look at your leadership. And my guarantee is that because of the caliber of the knowledge that we have available, we can, when we say it's not some kind of wishful thinking, but my guarantee is we can really help you to optimize whatever you're doing. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I saw Ambika, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Ed. So mine is more around, I think, on the logistical front. So firstly, such an honor to be here. Thank you, Avni, for this invitation. No coincidence I'm here. It's exactly the space to be in.
Sorry, I'm going to pause one moment. Ambika, I think I'm not sure if it's just me, but your audio sounds a little bit, yeah?
It is?
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a bit better now.
Maybe it's because of the earpods.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Be better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to, I know whatever you share is going to be very valuable for us all.
So firstly, I just want to say, Avni, wow, thank you. I'm exactly where I need to be. And this invite just popped up randomly, I think yesterday. And I saw Ed and I was like, of course I'm in the room. But my question is, I think, so I gather, I have no background context of this convening, right? And of course, it's exactly where we're pulled. I know Ronnie, of course, my husband would love to be a part of this conversation. So he's currently just coming down Mount Kilimanjaro with his group. So Is there an option for him to join the subsequent meetings is the first question. The second question is more around just access to the book. I saw it's available on Amazon, and I don't know how we would get access to that here in Zambia. I'm gonna figure it out and make it work. But in the interim, is there any other way, Ed, of anything else online we could read in order to really be present to the content, to be of like, so we can have a valuable contribution and engagement and immersion in the dialogue?
Yes. So what we'll do is, if it's the case, and this is, I'll throw this out to everyone. If any of you are not able to access to order the book on Amazon, let me know. I will make sure that we order it for you, and we'll get it sent to your location. Okay. So we will make arrangements. You know, we're more than happy to serve. Look, and I mean what I said. We're here to be of service. The reason why I'm thanking you is because as I'm discussing it, I'm learning more as well. It's not just one way. Actually, in one sense, the teacher learns more than the students, in a sense, if the teacher is proper. So I'm very, very grateful to explore. I love this subject. It's so interesting, and there's so much. Rick and I are involved in various projects, and you know, he and I are brothers. We'll be involved in various projects probably our whole life, I'm sure. So it's a great chance for us to grow and learn. So yeah, does that answer your question? And also, Ricky, maybe you can answer the question about Ronak, who's a great, wonderful friend of mine. Is he able to join subsequent sessions?
Yeah, not a problem. Definitely.
Great,
We do
thank you so
have
much.
we do have a web page where eventually we'll be putting a YouTube page where we'll be putting the recording. So it's just a matter of sharing that with you.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we go back to the slides? Okay, good. So we're going to just share a few more things. And as I said, I'm not going to go through everything because I don't want to overload you. This is really just to give you a flavor of the dynamics and the power of the kind of material that we'll be sharing and discussing in the sessions subsequently. So I'm just touching upon this because it reinforces what I just said about how we learn. Okay, so this is research. We tend to remember 30% of what we hear, sorry, of what we see. Okay, 50% of what we see and hear. This information you'll also find in the Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness 2 book. It's in one of the early sections. We tend to remember 70% of what we discuss, 80% of what we experience, and 90 to 95% of what we share. Now, I'll be very transparent with you. There's a reason why I'm pointing this out. The subsequent sessions that we do, I do not want the sessions to be one way, and it's deliberate. And when I say I do not want the sessions to be one way, it's not because I don't want to do all the talking. I want the sessions that will happen subsequently to be very, very interactive, and that is intentional. It is because we want to make sure that you get the most from the session. So today I may share more because it's actually, you know, just giving a taster, but going forward in these sessions, I'm gonna be very straightforward with you. I expect you all to come with conscious awareness. That means you're coming with a readiness to focus. Sometimes people come to a seminar and there's something else going on in the background, or they've got their phone on the side and they're checking their WhatsApp messages, or they're being pinged with their emails. I don't want to cheat you. So for those of you who will be on this journey, I'm going to be a little bit assertive, and I'm going to ask, when you come to these programs, not just for your sake, but for the benefit of everyone else, because we create a group culture. I'm expecting you to come, and because we want you to get this 70%, that means you're going to ask you to talk and share and discuss. Because we want you to get this 80%, I'm going to ask you to link what you've learned to your previous experiences, share your experiences. We may ask you about a particular leadership technique that you're doing already, and we want you to talk about, yes, I do that. I do that, I see the benefit of that. And by applying this, these are the positive impacts that I've actually experienced. So we're going to ask you to discuss, we're going to ask you to share both your successes and your failures, right? Because we want all of us to be humble. I gave a class here yesterday to a small group of people, and I was explaining to them something that I do with leaders. I'm going to be very transparent. With leaders, I'll make sure there's something in the session that helps them to recognize where they could improve. And it's based upon a Vedic secret. In the Vedas, it's explained that there are 4 stages of life. They call it brahmachari life, which is where you're in student life. Then you have that life where you're, married life, right? So sometimes it's called householder life. Then retired life, every culture, people retire at a certain age. And then there's one other stage, especially in culture, which are more spiritually oriented, where people may even come to a certain stage of life where they completely focus on spirituality. They may really travel, renounce everything, except that's a rare stage for most people. But I was explaining to the group that I was giving the seminar to that the first stage, the student life, there are certain activities that are meant to be done traditionally in student life. And there are activities where people do, they call it menial activities or menial service. And I was explaining the psychology behind it. So what I was explaining to them is when people do activities which are humbling, it optimizes their ability to learn. And I was telling them that honestly speaking, oftentimes I deal with people and I can tell whether they are going to learn and grow or not. Very simple test. If they're humble, then it means that because humility is the attitude of recognizing that I don't know everything, isn't it? Someone's humble because when one is in the student phase of life, by being humble, you will notice that they're able to learn, retain knowledge, and grow. So there's a direct correlation between humility and personal development and growth. I've sometimes seen the opposite. I've sometimes seen people and they want me to kind of guide them. And I've actually said no, because I've seen the opposite. They're proud. They think they know everything already, so we're wasting our time. You see, there was a story. One of my mentors told this story many years ago. There's a world famous musical school in Europe, and they teach young students how to play the piano and other classical instruments. So when they come for interview, this is very powerful. When they come for interview, in the interview, they're asked, have you learned any of these instruments before? Okay. If the student says no, they've not learned any of these instruments before, and they're enrolling to the school to learn how to play these classical instruments, they're charged one particular price for learning. If the student comes to that school and they're asked, have you learned any of these instruments before? And the student says, yes, I know how to play all of them, they're charged more money, right? Why are they charged more money? Because it will take longer for them to unlearn this attitude that I already know what I'm doing, right? I'm already an expert. Yeah, I know this stuff. Yes, I know how to play the piano. I know how to play this. A very interesting idea. It's more the mentality behind it. Yeah. So when I'm asking you to share your successes and your failures, it psychologically activates a mood of humility. Yes, we've got things wrong before, but we're learning from it, right? That's the difference between humility and low self-esteem. When there's low self-esteem, I become identified with my failures and I become discouraged. When there's humility, I recognize my mistakes and I become inspired to see what I can learn and how I can grow from it. Okay, and then the last point, of course, we want you to share. We are structuring these programs, to be very honest, such that between each session, I'm going to ask you to do some activities. Between each session, I'm going to give you some practical homework to do. And I'm doing it without any, I'm doing it enthusiastically, because I know that by giving you some practical takeaways, it will allow you to embed whatever we're sharing session by session to really get a feel for it in a three-dimensional way. Not just the theory, which is very powerful and practical, but also what it feels like when I implement that understanding in my own day-to-day life, into my leadership, into my business, into my teams. Okay, so Rikin mentioned this term, realized knowledge. Okay, The Sanskrit for this word is called Vigyan. Now, in the Sanskrit language, the word Gyan means knowledge. When you put the prefix Vi before the word, it intensifies the meaning. Okay? So Vigyan is actually realized knowledge. It's knowledge that has become a part of us. It is something that is no longer just an intellectual construct, but it's something that becomes part of my character because I feel it, I do it, I live it. Okay, so this is another part of what we will be doing over these 10 sessions, and this is why. Okay, let me pause. Questions on that? Any questions or comments? Is that clear? Okay, good. So let me move on. So I want us to end by doing one exercise just to whet our appetite. We're here and we're going to be on a journey about leadership. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm going to put you into breakout rooms to do this. So I'm going to stop here, just showing the screen. But the activity is very simple. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to go into small breakout rooms. You'll be in pairs. We're going to get a sense of the power of this subject matter. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask you to share in your pairs a recollection of someone that you had an experience with in your life who you consider to be a good leader, okay? It could be anyone. It could be a teacher at school. It could be a parent, anyone who had that kind of position of leadership. I want you to pair up. In your pairs, you're just going to share with the other person who that person was, why you consider them a good leader, and what was the impact of their example on you, okay? So I'm going to repeat that, and I'll put this in the chat window as well. So first of all, so number one, so who was that leader? Right, it may even be more than one person. Why did you consider them a good leader? Type that in, a good leader. And that's in the chat window. And the last one, what was the impact? Or I'll put, what impact did they have, or did their leadership have on you? Okay, so what impact did their leadership have on you? Okay, so those are the three things I'm going to ask you to talk about in your breakout rooms in pairs for about 10 minutes, if that's okay. And then we'll just come to a close from that point. Rikin, there's two options. Either you could put them into breakout pairs, or if you give me co-hosts or hosting rights, I can make the breakout pairs. I don't mind either way. How would you like to do this? Because I'm not a host.
I'll also just, 1 second.
Okay.
There you go.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to put you into random pairs. Okay, and we'll give you about 10 minutes so you can have a proper discussion, and then we're going to come back and we'll say a few closing comments from that point. Are there any questions on the activity that we're asking you to do before we send you into your breakout rooms? Okay, excellent. So I'm going to bring you back into the breakout rooms 10 minutes from now. You're in random pairs. If you don't know the person you're with, let's be very personal. Feel free to just give yourself some time to introduce yourself and get to know them as well. Obviously, we'll have many opportunities to do that as we go along this journey. Your breakout room will start now, and we'll bring you back 10 minutes time. And we really do look forward to taking you on this particular journey. Please, when we come to the next session, please bring pen and paper. A lot to discuss, a lot of interactive practices, applications, and also reflecting on our own experience, what's worked well, what we can do to improve. And if there are other people that you feel could value from this and who would like to come, obviously feel free to reach out to them, let them know, and we will kick off, in the next session. Thank you.
So grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
everyone,
Thank
for
you.
joining and kicking us off for our third book club. I really feel, as we've talked about in the past, that with the group of us that have been on for together, there's a real sense of community and family. And we welcome both Rob and Ambika and Ronnie to the kind of the growing family. But we hope that I think one of the great values, not only just in the content, but in the relationships we develop, I think there's a lot of power in that. And I look forward to continuing to grow that together. And thank you, Ed, again for, leading the way and for us to do this together.
Thank you, Rick, and for helping to set up this opportunity. And thank you all for attending and sharing your energy, your sincerity, and your enthusiasm. I'm looking forward to this journey that we're going on together. Okay, have a great day. Have a great weekend as well.